Alex Pereira versus the top 10 UFC light heavyweight. So after his big win over Khalil Rountree at UFC 307, today we're going to be going through the top 10 UFC light heavyweights and seeing how many of these guys Alex Pereira can beat. So starting off at the bottom, we have got coming in at number 10, Carlos Hilberg. Now, this is a fight that I expect to happen one day, to be honest, because Carlos Hilberg does have that relationship with Israel Adesanya, so that can play into the Adesanya-Pereira storyline. I think we will see this fight one day, and it's clear the UFC want to get Hilberg up the rankings as fast as possible, as his next fight is against Volkan Oezdemir, who is ranked number 6 in the light heavyweight division. Now, Carlos Hilberg is a good striker, but Alex Pereira smokes him, to be honest. I think Pereira would beat Carlos Hilberg fairly comfortably. I think he would KO Carlos Hilberg. I'll give him out of 10 chances, maybe like a 4. Next up, Johnny Walker. Now, this is a funny one because I would just love to see the way Pereira knocks out Johnny Walker. I think it would be hilarious because Johnny Walker just doesn't get knocked out. He gets knocked out in like the most clown-looking way possible. Like, just remember that Jamal Hill KO. Johnny Walker knows how to get KO'd. Although, not the Johnny Walker of now, but the Johnny Walker of old, I could have seen KOing Alex Pereira. Now, hear me out. Johnny Walker is so unorthodox, and I feel like you have to be a very unorthodox striker to have success against Alex Pereira most of the time. Now, I thought that about Yuri Brasa. The guy got slumped twice by Alex Pereira. But Johnny Walker with the flying knees and just the spinning shit, the old Johnny Walker would have been a real threat to Alex Pereira, in my opinion, just because of how crazy he was. I would have still picked Pereira to beat him, but I feel like it would have made for an interesting fight. The Johnny Walker of now, though, he gets KO'd by Alex Pereira within one round, in my opinion. I'm going to give Johnny Walker of now like a 3 out of 10 chance. Next up, Khalil Rountree. We've just seen him go in there against Alex Pereira at UFC 307 and give Pereira his toughest striking matchup. In fact, his toughest test. Nah, Yamlovic gave him a harder fight. But his toughest test on the feet outside of Israel Adesanya. Khalil Rountree went in there and didn't expose Alex Pereira because Pereira did end up smoking him in the end, but did show that you can catch Pereira. He is there to be hit. He isn't as invincible as what people let him on to be. Khalil Rountree did look good in there. However, I think Khalil Rountree would end up suffering the same fate if he did get a rematch against Alex Pereira. I think it would happen even earlier, to be honest, next time round. Khalil Rountree would get slumped again by Alex Pereira, but Khalil Rountree is so tough. Like, the amount of shots he took off Alex Pereira in there was insane. But I'd give him like a... I did drop Pereira. We'll go 5 out of 10 chance. Nikita Krylov, where has this guy been? This guy has got some big names on his resume. Volkan Oezdemir, Johnny Walker. There's a couple of others on there. He is making his return at UFC 309 on the John Jones card. Nikita Krylov is very underrated in my opinion. He's at least at max 2 wins away from fighting for the title. He can grapple, he can strike. I feel like you could have success grappling with Alex Pereira, but a lot of people seem to think that if you can wrestle, you beat Alex Pereira, and that's just not the case. These guys might be able to take him down. They might be better grapplers than him, but Pereira does a really good job of keeping himself safe on the mat, and I think he would do a good job against Nikita Krylov. On the feet, Pereira's levels above him. He KOs Nikita Krylov, although for the grappling threat, I'll give Nikita Krylov like a 6 out of 10. Volkan Oezdemir, predominantly a striker. He is very powerful, but he is very slow in there, in my opinion. I think Pereira would just light up his lead leg, which would make Volkan Oezdemir even slower moving. And I think Volkan Oezdemir would just be a static target in there for Pereira. I think Pereira would ping the head of the guy, and I think he'd stop Volkan Oezdemir within 3 rounds max. Next up, I'll give Volkan Oezdemir like a 3 out of 10. No, 4 out of 10 because he is powerful. Next up, Alexander Rakic. This would be a tough fight for Alex Pereira, in my opinion. Rakic, it will definitely be one of his tougher matchups in the light heavyweight division if these guys do cross paths. I think Rakic has a really good shot of beating Magomed Ankalaev as well, in my opinion. He's got great leg kicks. He's extremely strong for the division, and he is a pretty decent striker, although he does a good job of when he's the hammer, but when Rakic is the nail, the guy does tend to buckle and fold. We've seen that in the Yuri Prohaska matchup. When it was all going his way, he looked great, but when Yuri started to fight back and put that pressure on Rakic, he just didn't like it. I think this would be a competitive fight, but I would take Pereira to beat Rakic. I think he would stop him. I'm going to give Rakic, though, a 6.5 out of 10 chance of beating Pereira. Next up, Jan Blachowicz. I think Jan Blachowicz, outside of Ankalaev, is his toughest matchup. Jan Blachowicz arguably beat him on Pereira's UFC light heavyweight debut. It was a very, very close fight. Jan Blachowicz showed that you have to mix the grappling in with Pereira if you want to have any success in there with him. And if you want to make a real fight out of it, unless you are the likes of Israel Adesanya, who's just this world beater striker. I don't care what anybody says. Adesanya is one of the best strikers we've ever seen in the UFC. Cry about it. But yeah, Jan Blachowicz, he is getting up there in age now. He didn't do a good job of defending Alex Pereira's calf kicks, and he did gas out in there, although that fight was at altitude. But Pereira just doesn't seem to gas out, which is crazy to think. This guy's extremely powerful. He's a deadly kickboxer, and the guy just doesn't gas out. Recipe for disaster. I do think Jan Blachowicz could beat him. Obviously, Jan Blachowicz has the power as well to turn anybody's lights out. But I would go with the time off, the age of Jan Blachowicz now, and the injury he's coming off of, which was his shoulder, I believe. I'm taking Alex Pereira to stop Jan Blachowicz. I would give Jan Blachowicz, though, a 7 out of 10 in terms of chances of beating Alex Pereira. Like I said, outside of one other guy on this list, I think Jan Blachowicz is definitely Pereira's toughest fight. Next up, Jamal Hill. I picked Jamal Hill to beat Alex Pereira, to be honest, and he got slumped. I like Jamal Hill. I do think a lot of people underrate him. Or no, not underrate him. Overrate him. No, yeah, overrate him. I think Jamal Hill is a good striker. I think he could definitely give a better showing of himself than what he did at UFC 300 against Alex Pereira. But his only way to beat Pereira is having a kickboxing match with him and catching him. And that's just not going to work. Pereira is just too elite in the striking department for a lot of these guys in this division. And I think Jamal Hill would just suffer the same fate. Next up, Magomed Ankalaev. This is his toughest fight in the division, to be honest. Purely because of the grappling aspect of Magomed Ankalaev. He is probably the best grappler in the division, quite comfortably, if we're being honest. And he can strike as well, and he is powerful. And he is a southpaw, and southpaws tend to give Pereira a bit of problems in there. But I still think Ankalaev would suffer the same fate everybody else has. Ankalaev does not check leg kicks, although he is a southpaw, which a lot of people wonder how that will affect Pereira's leg kicks. It doesn't affect it at all. The guy just uses his lead leg and he causes the exact same amount of damage. Like I said, Ankalaev, he could take Pereira down, absolutely. But he isn't a submission threat and he doesn't get off any nasty ground and pound either. And Pereira, for what people want to say about his ground game, the guy keeps himself very, very safe on the mat. I think he would wreck the leg of Ankalaev, which then would stop Ankalaev's ability to be able to shoot. Ankalaev says he wants to stand and strike with him anyway, which is just retarded in my opinion, which would stunt his ability to shoot, stunt his ability to move, make him a static target in there, and he's not the level of kickboxer that Alex Pereira is. Nobody is, to be honest. Alex Pereira KOs Magomed Ankalaev. Next up, Yuri Brasa. I've picked him twice to beat Pereira, and you know what? I'd pick him again to beat him. No, I'm only joking. Yuri Brasa leaves himself too open. He doesn't defend leg kicks. His striking defense isn't great. He's just a big heavy bag, to be honest, with a lot of power and is very unorthodox. Pereira would KO him again. So yeah, that's it. I don't think anybody in the light heavyweight division beats Alex Pereira at the minute, but let me know what you think in the comments below. And as always, like, share, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff, and I'll see you again in the next one.